to be of the nature that it was. The crowd in the courtroom mutters as Yaroslav skirts this sensitive subject. Trunyi strokes his beard and leans forward as the girl in the front row crosses her legs. Jindash is coloring in the fingernails on his sketch. Mulagesh casts an eye over the crowd, cataloguing the various ailments and diseases. The boy with the crutches, rickets. The woman with the scabbed face, pox. And she can't tell what's wrong with the man in the corner, though she dearly hopes what he's covered in is mud. Yaroslav and a few others, as mildly successful continentals, can afford running water, and thus, in their examples, one can observe the continental specimen free of filth. Pale, heavy-featured, dark-eyed, and in the case of the men, sporting untamed mountains of beards. Mulagesh and the other Sepuris, by stark contrast, are short, slender, and dark-skinned, with somewhat long noses and narrow chins, and, as Trunyi's ridiculous bearskin coat attests, they are much more accustomed to warm Sepuri climates, far across the South Seas. To a distant extent, very distant, Mulagesh can understand Trunyi and Jindash's disinterest. The continent is steadfastly, defiantly, stubbornly backward, to the degree that one sometimes forgets the many unsettling reasons why Sepur bothers occupying such a miserable nation. Though can we really call ourselves occupiers, thinks Mulagesh, if we've been here for nearly 75 years? When do we graduate to residents? If Mulagesh were to offer everyone in the courtroom money right now and say, Here is something to get you the medicine you need, to buy you fresh water, it's all too likely the Continentals would spit in her hand before accepting a single red cent. Mulagesh understands why they resent them so, for though they may look like no more than paupers and beggars, these people were once the most powerful and dangerous human beings alive. Which they remember, of course, Mulagesh thinks, as she watches one man stare at her with naked rage. Hence why they hate us so. Yaroslav summons up his nerve. Here it comes, thinks Mulagesh. I never intended, he says clearly, for my sign to reference any divinity, any trace of the celestial, nor any god. A quiet hum as the courtroom fills with whispers. Mulagesh and the rest of the Sepuris on the bench remain unimpressed by the dramatic nature of this claim. How do they not know, mutters Jindash, that this happens at every single worldly regulations trial? Quiet, whispers Mulagesh. This public breach of the law emboldens Yaroslav. Yes, I never intended to show fealty to any divinity. I know nothing of the divinities, of what they were or who they were. Mulagesh barely stops herself from rolling her eyes. Every continental knows something about the divinities. To claim otherwise would be akin to claiming ignorance that rain is wet. And thus I could not have known that the sign I posted outside of my millenary unfortunately, coincidentally, mimicked a divinity's sigil. A pause. Mulagesh glances up, realizing Yaroslav has stopped speaking. Are you finished, Mr. Yaroslav? She asks. Yaroslav hesitates. Yes, I believe so, yes. Thank you. You may take your seat. Prosecutor Jindash stands, takes the floor, and produces a large photograph of a painted sign that reads, Yaroslav Hats. Below the letters on the sign is a largish symbol, a straight line ending in a curlicue pointing down that has been altered slightly to suggest the outline of the brim of a hat. Jindash swivels on his heels to face the crowd. Would this be your sign, Mr. Yaroslav? Jindash